Hey, I'm Guy.
I'm John.
It's our YouTube channel. Subscribe to it, and give this video a like.
Podcast below in the description. Check it out and do it now.
All right, John. Daniel Jeremiah will read some of what he wrote NFL.com. He made a list of best fits for particular quarterbacks, and he had the Jets drafting Zach Wilson. So that means what's up with Sam Darnold? I'll read you some of what he wrote. I believe Darnold would play well next season if he were to stay in New York or go to San Francisco. Both teams run the QB-friendly Shanahan offense. But the best thing for him might be to get a fresh start with a new team closer to the West Coast. The level of compensation for such a trade would let us know whether he's being given the starting job or if he needs to beat out Jimmy Garoppolo in a competition. Remember, Adam Schefter, who was on this podcast, said he thought like a late first, ultimately, or early second, is what it could take to get Sam Darnold.
Well, I think it's fair to say the late first is off the table. Like, that's not happening at this point in time now. Because if he had a late first, people would have been all over him and he would have been traded for. Like, I just don't envision that taking place. I'd say a second-round pick of any sort of early, late, middle, whatever, is probably still on the table. Though, I do think the way the quarterback market played out, I'd want, like, where is he really going? Right? Like,
yeah, Bears are off the
Saints ain't
table.
trading for him.
Saints
don't
trading
have a
for
spot. I just don't really see a spot, you know?
I mean, in a weird way, I'm jumping ahead several steps. Houston. If something, depending on where these things go with Deshaun.
But they don't really have any picks to give them, right?
Yeah. You're talking if it's a second rounder. Yeah.
I don't know.
You're right.
So they're kind of in a tough spot. I mean, could the Niners, I have a hard time trading a third round pick for a guy to then, even if you kept Jimmy, to have that situation. That feels a little haphazard, a little Philly, Jalen Hurts, Carson. Like, it just gets weird fast, and it's so easy to say, be a pro, handle like a pro, suck it up. And it's like, yeah, it's easy to say with guards and centers and wide receivers. I think with the quarterback thing, when the guy literally has to lead your team, it becomes a little more complicated. I don't think I could acquire Sam Darnold. And I'm not saying that Sam Darnold's better than Jimmy. I think the Niners have a serious problem. And I think their serious problem is this. The LA Rams are in Super Bowl mode. And they were way better, to start to finish on a season than you last year. Even though you kicked their ass. And we've talked about this, and you always bring up the point, like a huge part of the reason you were kicking their ass is now gone. Like, they ate Jared Goff for lunch. They've only played Matt Stafford once since Kyle's been here. And remember, the Niners barely won that game. They actually should have lost. Jimmy threw a pick six that was like, came back on a defensive holding call or something. But
shout out to my Uber driver that day who at that time identified Jimmy as a guy that he had to get rid of.
He was ahead of the curve. But the Rams are in Super Bowl mode, and they've upgraded. Like, they're really good. And that's who you're chasing. And as long as Russell's still there, Seattle's really good. So, like, you got a quarterback problem. Jimmy's reliability, he's just not trustworthy. And then, like, Sam, to me, would just be ability. Like, is he good enough? Like, it's why that I still think, and this is going to be a talking point, really, we're a little over a month away from the draft. So a shitload can trade that night, right? I mean, the fortunes of the Niners. I was thinking about this today. Can you imagine some of the talking points around, like, people that talked about the Chiefs the year of the Mahomes draft, like right now? Like, oh, there's going Alex Smith again. This is the same old thing. We're so close. We have a legit team if we just upgrade the quarterback, and then things can change. It's why I'm not going to say, like, for sure they're not going to be able to upgrade the quarterback position, because it can change draft night with one trade. But as of right now, they are at a disadvantage. And I think that they're looking up at the other two teams above them. And the one team that we saw the last 2 years, they really handled the Rams. I can't say that anymore because the weak link is gone.
Yep. Yeah, and the other part of this, the other reason I don't think you can acquire Darnold as Jimmy's backup, even though how much is he making this year? 4.5?
4.7.
Okay,
cash.
That's reasonable, fine. But like you said, you couldn't trade a third rounder and do that because are you going to acquire him and not pick up his fifth-year option? Deadline May 3rd, $18 million. Because if you acquire him and Jimmy's still there, you can't pick up Darnold's fifth-year option, because then you're saying either, okay, Jimmy, we still want you to beat out Darnold this year, but you're going to be gone next year because we can't pay the two of you $50 million, whatever that would be, right? Not quite 50, but probably close.
40.
So we can't do that, but we're going to acquire this guy for a third-round pick and then not protect ourselves. To me, he's got to be your starter if you get him, because I think you got to pick up the fifth-year option unless you trade a fifth or a fourth-round pick for him. Then you don't have to do anything. But it doesn't. I mean, they're going to know that you don't have options.
I'm out of the Sam Darnold deal now. Like with Stafford, the more I think about it, I just don't think that's enough.
Well, to me, the only way you can do Darnold is if you're convinced that he can be really good, like top 15 quarterback in the NFL next year. If you're not convinced of that, then you're spinning your wheels.
Yeah, and I don't think they're convinced. They couldn't be. They would already trade it for him. And who knows? I mean, there is a decent chance as of right now. Here's the thing. Daniel Jeremiah and Joe Douglas worked together for a decade in Baltimore. They are very close. Very, very close. Like best friends. So I think he has
Scouting
some inclination that they like Zach Wilson. I just wonder what Sam Darnold, like if I could acquire Sam Darnold for like a fourth-round pick, I would do that in a heartbeat. Just because the value is there. And then I could just have him as my backup and figure it out later. But if I get anything second day, like, nah, I just...
Yeah, you couldn't do a third.
Not as long as Russell Wilson's still there and Matt Stafford's there. The Rams do have, the Cardinals have a lot of talent.
You're saying fourth-round pick, and then you don't have to pick up his fifth-year option. You just see how it plays out.
Yeah, just a low-flying risk, right? It'd be a type. To me, fourth-round picks are the really good deals you get at the trade deadline for a guy that's going to be a free agent, right? It's like, oh, you just traded for so-and-so for a fourth-round pick. Like, okay, you guy's only going to be there for 6 games. I can do that. Especially just get the guy around, and then maybe you can decide. But I can't, like, if teams are willing to give a second-round pick, like, I'm sorry.
But back to the original point,
the Niners don't have a backup quarterback right now. Like that, they're kind of in no man's land. That's why I think as long as they don't have a backup quarterback, I think they're still preparing to take a big swing on something. They don't have a backup quarterback, and we've learned like Jimmy Garoppolo needs a backup quarterback.
Right.
Like that's like part of his package. It's like,
how is that connected to taking a big swing in your mind?
What?
How is that connected to taking a big swing?
Well, because if Jimmy was 100% going to be on the team, you would have been aggressive in signing one of these guys. Maybe you give $3 or $4 million to Trubisky. Maybe you get
one of those guys.
Maybe 4.5.
I follow you. Yep.
But as long as you're just leaving your options open, I think because I think right now their options are completely open. And it's just, oh yeah, we love Jimmy. Peter Schrager, could you give another positive tweet about Jimmy? We'd appreciate. Oh, Schefter, you got us? Yeah.
Because the Joe Flaccos aren't going anywhere if you need a backup in 2 months.
No. And I also think that people's natural reaction about a Joe Flacco thing, Joe Flacco's agent, I'm sure, is very powerful. Joe, like at this point in time in his career, like, hey, man, can you just bring this guy in? And you can see, where did he go? He went to the Niners. Then he went to the Eagles. Like, it's just, there's a way business is done in the league. It doesn't mean the Niners really want Joe Flacco. And maybe they end up signing him. But there are favors done to just keep the train rolling with all your players, right?
But also, even if they like Joe Flacco as their backup quarterback, okay, fine, whatever.
Yeah, it can't be worse than what they had.
No. Now, I think if you're them too, you probably
don't love it though. I personally don't.
No, but which one? Yeah, I would love Trubisky. I would have loved that as the backup. But by nature, no backup is you don't actually love the backup.
Yeah, if you're consumed with your backup, like I think part of the reason the Saints were consumed with Jameis as the backup, because it was like, could he be our starting quarterback, right? Once Drew retires. In the Niners situation, it's like, well, what happens when Jimmy misses his 7 games? Well, it's like, you're probably screwed. That's why, to me, Jimmy's got to go.
Yeah. That's why they're going to draft Davis Mills, John. I do think
he misses 10?
Who misses 10?
Davis Mills.
Well, he's played in 11, so he has missed a lot of games in his career.
I'm out on mid-round quarterbacks as well. Just go up and take a big swing. Just pull a Patrick Mahomes. I'm not saying that any of these guys are Patrick Mahomes. I'm just saying have that mindset. Like, say what you want about Ryan Pace. He missed on the right player. I do commend the mindset. He approached it the right way. He just picked the wrong guy out of the 3.
Yeah. And again, in retrospect, if we all take ourselves back to that world, there was a lot of agreement that Mitchell Trubisky was the top quarterback in that draft.
I saw someone in Chicago tweeted out a screenshot of McShay, Daniel Jeremiah, Mel Kiper, and like
Mayock.
Matt and Mayock.
Mayock had him.
He was number 1 on every single list. Every single one.
Yeah. I'll have to go back and check.
My pushback is always, I don't give a fuck. Like Ryan Pace, what the media thinks is irrelevant to you, right? It's cool for us to talk about it now, but it's like you were paid to be right.
Yep.